you can look to Hananel and...
They have a nice time.
Hananel has an English project. He have to write about his roots.
Oh, I see.
איפה המכשיר האייפוד? אני... I ask you, I read you now the question and then you, after that I can answer them. Right?
Yeah, what you
You
want?
understand me?
I'm looking at you.
Yeah, you can do all.
Yes.
That's just send now like that flower. That's a flower,
Yes.
a robot flower.
No, it's not working. Oh, it's working, yes.
No.
Yes, it's working. There's the
Oh,
red,
yes?
there's the
No.
red light.
That's not mine. This is
okay.
just
Okay.
flowers.
Okay. I'll talk to you.
Just see. Wow, where is it? So,
You want to know where I was born?
yes,
Yeah, I was
just a minute. Yeah. The questions.
question
Here.
where were you born? Where
Yes.
was I born? In Johannesburg.
I promise you, very
South
many
Africa.
mornings I don't eat breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I was born. I was born in a street called Marshall Street. It's two blocks, two corners, 2 blocks away from the main street, Yellow Street. Yellow Street was the main street in Johannesburg, and I was born 2 corners away, 154 Marshall Street in Johannesburg. That's today they call it the Republic of South Africa, RSA. And I was born on the 11th of July 1916. That's in the middle of the First World War.
Yeah.
1916. It was from
Was the first one?
1912 to 1918. I was born in 1916.
You were born in the First World War,
Yeah, in the middle of the First World War.
and that was a difficult.
Well, I was born there, child, and well, you know, South Africa was taken over by the Afrikaners from the British, you know.
Yeah.
They had the Boer War in 20 years before I was born. They had war with the British. The British had come to South Africa, and the Afrikaners were there before the British. They came from Holland, you know, and other countries in Europe. The Afrikaners were there first, and then the British came, and
Okay.
you know, they were colonizing. They were making colonies all over the world, the British, and they had the war there. That was where I was born. My father came from
Later.
Lithuania. He came from Shovel in Lithuania. He came from there, and he didn't want to serve in the Tsar's army, you know, the Russian
Yeah.
Tsar, the army. He said because there they had to go into the army for 10 years, and he wasn't prepared to do that. So I suppose him and others like him, he wasn't the only Jew who didn't want to fight for the Russians.
Yeah.
So they all got on a boat, excuse me, and they were going to America.
Mm-hmm.
But in those days it was very difficult. It was not like today. Today it took months and months and months coming from Europe, going down, the boat going down. And instead of going to America, they came to South Africa. They landed at Cape Town. Cape Town is the port. It's the beginning of South Africa. They landed there. And my father left in such a big hurry, like the Jews coming out of Mitzrayim. They had no time. They just ran. He had just his clothes on, no papers, no documents, nothing. When he arrived at Cape Town, well, you know, the officials there from the immigration, they asked him questions. Show me your name, where you come from. You know? Just had to give them his name. And then, in those days, well, today they also have the Chevra Kadisha. They were already there because they came before. The Jews were still there. And they helped my father to get moving in South Africa. He's a complete stranger. He was only, I think, 19 or 20. By the way, he got married before he left Lithuania.
Okay.
He married my mother, and he left her, and he went with all the other Chevra. And he came in 1909. So the Chevra Kadisha helped him, and then he went to the Lithuanian consulate in Cape Town. They asked him all sorts of information. Excuse me. Where you come from, where you were born, and your parents and everything. And they gave him a certificate to say that his name is Hirsch Friedlander, coming from Savla in Lithuania. And he got a record of his name and so forth. And then, so he got something, he got a document, you see, he got a paper now with his name and everything. Then he's got it. Now, in those days, South Africa wasn't one country. It was 4 different countries. Like you have here, you have Israel, you have Palestine, and you have Gaza, you know, you have different, you have Jordan, you know. We had the Cape Colony, so they had a border that moved from, we were coming up by train, come up to the border, leaving Cape Colony. The next country was the Free State. They called it the Oranje Vrystaat. It was the Afrikaans name, Orange Free State in English. And you had to come across the border with his documents. From there, he went up to the Transvaal, another border. Ask him again, you know, the same thing when you come to a different country with a visa or passport. Ask him again, came into Transvaal. Now Transvaal, from Transvaal, came into Johannesburg. Johannesburg was the main city in the Transvaal. So he came there and he settled there in Johannesburg. In the early days, was struggling. My father was a shoemaker. You know what a shoemaker is? You put in the shoes.
Ah, Sandlau.
Sandla. Okay, Sandla. He was a shoemaker in Lithuania.
Oh, okay.
Sandla, yeah.
Right.
That was his work, and he was working like that to make a living, you know, to live. And then I think he met friends and they helped him. Incidentally, I think I had an uncle who was here before.
Ah,
He, my
his
uncle,
older son.
my mother's brother came here before. He was in Pretoria. You know, Pretoria is also I think it's the largest city in Transvaal. Pretoria, that's where they had the parliament, the Knesset.
Okay.
You know, that's where my late uncle stayed. But my late uncle must have helped my father along, and we were living in Anderson Street. That was one street off the main street. Ella Street was the main street, and then on the side, this side, going
Yeah.
this way,
Okay.
you know, Ella Street was like that,
Mhm.
and Anderson Street was here, and I don't know how, but my father got to buy in a property. Maybe my uncle helped him, I don't know, but we were in a beautiful home, beautiful house, and next door we had flats, you know, apartments that the miners, you know, were a little bit away from, on the other side of Ella Street, we had the mines there, we had the gold mines there, and the miners used to come into town, and we had, my late father had these rooms here, apartments, and the miners used to come and stay there, sleep there, and he used to let them the rooms. And one thing and another, things started moving. 1 year after my father came to South Africa, RSA,
Mhm.
my mother came,
Okay.
1910.
Okay.
My father came in 1909, and my mother came in 1910, 1 year later.
Mhm.
And then they were together, and then we lived together in Anderson Street. We were 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls.
Like my family.
Yeah, 3 boys and 3 girls we were. Unfortunately, I lost my brother. My brother was older than me, 1 year older than me. It was after bar mitzvah. I think he was about 14, 15. Maybe, how old are you? 17? 17. What is your age?
Age?
You 17?
Yeah.
No, my brother, I think he was about 15. And, sorry. And you know, the children, the boys, young boys, they go with sport and they went swimming,
Yeah.
swimming in the water. And I think what happened was when he dived into the water, his head must have hit stone, a rock or stone, and he got very sick. He developed pneumonia, double pneumonia, and the doctors there couldn't help him. They couldn't save him, and I lost my brother. He died, and that was the one brother that was.
Quite older.
He was older than me. Yes, he was about a year older than me. You know, we had 6 children, and I think we had. Yeah, we were 6 children in 9 years. I think it was 9 years. 9 years. And so what can I say now about that? Now after a while we were living. That's where my brother died when we were staying in Anderson Street. Then we moved from there. My father sold the property, and we moved into Marshall Street. We were living in Marshall Street. I'm talking the other way around. I'm sorry. We were first in Marshall Street. That's where I was born, in Marshall Street. Number 154, Marshall Street in Johannesburg. And from there we moved to Anderson Street. From Anderson Street, you know the Jews, they moved together.
Yeah. I was Jews.
Yeah, they moved from Anderson Street. It was in the middle of the city, in the town, like like Tel Aviv. We were living like in Tel Aviv. Then all the Jews moved out to like Kiryat Ono, Petah Tikva, all the Jews moved to...
In Johannesburg.
Yeah, in Johannesburg. We moved into city in suburban, that's where I was. My father had a little shop. He had a little shop there.
After he was a shoemaker, or
He was doing. He was working with a shoemaker, and he was getting these clothes here, what you call vests and shirts, and he was selling in the shop. While he was selling in the shop, in those days, mostly the blacks were the customers, were the people who bought clothes and things like that. And at the same time, he was preparing the shoes. He was making the shoes. Well, that's how he made his living anyhow. So,
it was a textile.
yeah. Then afterwards we moved, as I said before, all the Jews started moving. Some moved that way, some moved west, and some moved east. We moved east. We went to a place called Doornfontein. It was the Afrikaans name, Doornfontein. Now we call it Doornfontein. Fontein was a fountain, you see. So that was the name of the suburb where all the Jews went, and we went to live there. And that's where we were living in Doornfontein. And then, after a while, of course, the war came along, 1939, when we were still under the British in those days. The British were in South Africa.
Yeah.
And, but we were, the Afrikaners broke away from the British in 1910. But when the war broke out with Hitler in Germany in 1939, the Knesset came together and they voted, must we join the war, or must we join the British to fight the war, or must we join the Germans, fight with the Germans? And that was the Afrikaners.
South Africa.
In South Africa. The Afrikaners were mostly with the Germans because of the language.
The Afrikaners know
Afrikaners.
the Germans?
They were speaking Afrikaans, or Hollands.
Oh.
So the Knesset, they had a vote. And it was very close, it was like this. But the English, we had a Jan Smuts. He was very much in favor of the British. So he managed to get the majority, I think, by a few votes. He won the vote in the Knesset, and they declared war. South Africa declared war on Germany. The next day, September, what was that? September 1939. Anyway, it was the next day or 2 days later, South Africa declared war on Germany. Now the South African army were getting ready to go and fight, to go and help the British. So my younger brother was already in the army. He was called up. In those days, they had a ballot. The government didn't call everybody. They just pulled out a paper from a box and they said, oh, Mr. So-and-so, address so-and-so, you're going to come into the army. Now my brother was called up. My younger brother was called up. I wasn't called up, and my older brother wasn't called up also. But my younger one, he was in the army. He was in uniform already a few days already before the war came. So when the war came, he was in the army. So I was very much with my younger brother, very much with him. And I couldn't let him go.
to the
fight, you know. So I left my work and I joined the army. I joined the same unit he was in, together with him. I went with him. You know, we got all different units in the army. There's not all one place. So I joined the unit to be with my brother. So I went with my brother.
זה עלה לך?
Yes, I put on uniform. I joined the army.
You was
I
same
was a volunteer. I
size.
was voluntary army. Yes.
Yeah.
That's where I joined, and I went with him. We went to the camp. You know, I told you there was a big city named Pretoria. Just after Pretoria, we had a camp where the South Africans went. We went for training. We had to train. We couldn't just go like this into the army, you know. Like in Israel, we got to learn to. We had a machine gun. We had a little machine gun that we used to. You know how long ago that was? In 1940. 1940, 60, 70 years, 71 years ago. Little machine gun. We had to train, and we had a rifle also, you know, to shoot. We had a training for a few months, and then we all went up. We started moving. Once we had about 6 months training, I think it was, then we moved up because we had to go to war. The war was in North Africa. You know, the Germans were coming there also.
Yeah.
You know, when they came across Europe. You know, from Germany they came across Europe. You know the map?
Yeah.
Across Europe and Italy, and they went into Poland and Austria and all those countries, Belgium, Holland and France. You know, they came there, and then afterwards.
Morocco.
Yeah, they
Tunisia,
came Morocco and Tunisia and Egypt. You know,
Yeah.
they came there also, the Germans. So we had to go up to them. Now, in those days, Italy had
Like the Germans.
like the Germans, the Italians. They had
Yeah,
Mussolini.
it was-
You know Mussolini?
Yeah.
You heard
You
of
learned
Mussolini?
in history.
History. Mussolini was a fascist. He was with Germans. You see, so he was also our enemy, the British enemy. So in Italy, he came down Africa
Yeah,
to
right.
Ethiopia,
In
came to
Tunisia.
Somalia. You know Ethiopia?
Yeah.
You know we had some
Ethiopia.
coming from Ethiopia. They came to Israel. You remember some of them?
Yeah.
That's where Italy. He came and he came into the country.
And fight with the...
Yeah, he came into the country because we were.
But he lives here, no?
What?
He lives in Ethiopia, no?
Yes, they were in Somalia.
Yeah.
Somalia was coming down to South Africa. It was.
Yeah.
So we had to go up. So we moved up we had to go to Kenya first. You know, Kenya comes from
Yeah.
Kenya. We moved into Kenya
With bussar and burar.
in 1940, 1941. 41, we moved into Kenya, and I was in Kenya there. My brother was there also. And then we had a training there. We had a camp in Kenya because we had to prepare and everything. We were going up to meet.
You know, like proof of solidarity, you know?
We had more training and everything. We had to establish camps and everything because they were coming down. The Italians were coming down. They were going to come to South Africa, you know, and they want the whole country. Anyway, so we were training in Kenya as well, and then my brother, I split up from my brother. I was in a different section there because I was a volunteer, so I was doing different work. And he moved up with the South Africans. They moved up from Kenya. They moved up to Egypt.
Egypt, yeah.
They went up to Egypt, Mitzrayim.
Yeah.
And I was still there in Kenya for a little while, and then afterwards I also went up to Egypt, into a place called Gilgil. No, not Gilgil. Gilgil was in Kenya. Helwan. just outside Cairo, there was a South African camp called Hell One. And that's where we were training there and everything. We had a camp there. My brother went up. You know, in those days, the Germans were very strong.
Yeah.
They were very strong. With Rommel was their general, was moving, and then, well, the Americans weren't in the war yet. It was only the British, and we were with the British. We became attached to the British army. But the Israelis, in those days, in 1940s, the Israelis were the Irgun and the Stern and all those other groups there. They joined the British because the British were in Palestine. The British were in Palestine.
Yeah.
So we were the Israelis joined with the British. Yeah.
Because they want the British taking them on that.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
it fell after the war.
Yeah, so the Israelis joined with the British and they pushed the Turks out. You know, Turkey was occupying the land. And they pushed the Turks out. The Israelis with the British. And I'm talking about the British because we were attached to the British army.
You fight from the
No, well, I wasn't in the front line. My brother was. My brother went in.
in Israel. You be in
My
the
younger
war.
brother. Pardon? He was in the war, yes. I wasn't in the war. I was behind a little bit
At Egypt.
in the camp. Yeah. In Egypt, yes. And you know, in those days it was very dangerous with the armies moving up and down North Africa. You know, Morocco and